You're listening to The Journey with Ellie and Erin. Join us every week as we talk about all the things woo, wise and wonderful with our guests and have the bigger, braver, bolder conversations that women should be having so that we can be the change the world needs.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Journey with Ellie and Erin. Happy New Year! We're in 2023, isn't that wonderful? Ready to start a brand new year, lots of exciting things ahead of us and lots of exciting interviews. We've got some fabulous people lined up and we were lucky enough to speak to someone truly incredible this week, which we'll be sharing with you today. There's been lots going on here at Awakening. We've been moving house. Erin has moved from Dunedin up to the North Island. I've been dealing with having my fabulous parents to stay. They were over for about 6 weeks from the UK, which was wonderful. And now we're just kind of getting back into some semblance of normality, which, you know, we shall see how that goes. We're still on school holidays, so I've still got entertaining of children. And I've got a birthday tomorrow. It's my eldest daughter's sixth birthday tomorrow. So that's very exciting. And we've had lots of big conversations about what her party's going to be about and all of the presents. So it has been a fun and exciting time, but also slightly tiring. But anyway, today we are interviewing this incredible woman. She's based over in the States and she works with women to basically connect to their own wisdom as well as their ancestral wisdom. She's an incredible woman. She's had an amazing journey and she is so open and willing to share her journey and her experiences with us that I think you'll really enjoy this episode. If you know of anyone else who would like to listen to us, do feel free to share the podcast away, tell them about the radio, show them what time we're on, because we really believe that we have a message to share with people and we would love for you to let us know if we're hitting the mark, if there's anything you want to be hearing about. If there's anyone listening who thinks that they'd like to share their journey on our podcast or radio show, then please get in touch, info@awakeningthewisewoman.com. Drop us a note, let us know what you're thinking, what you'd like to talk about, and we would love to be in touch. So without further ado, here is this week's episode.
Okay, so today we are super excited to have an incredible guest to share with you. The person that we are speaking to today is Xerces, and she is a Matrescence Coach. And I should have asked that before I started this. Is that the right way to say it?
Yes.
Right, a Matrescence Coach, here to pass down ancestral wisdom to those who are connected to me or to her on this path, her soul family. She's well-versed in Western mental health practices, but she also incorporates learning from her own ancestors and internal wisdom to guide conscious mothers on an emotional healing journey. I know that Ellie is a huge fan of her work, and I'm extremely interested in what you do. So welcome, Xerces. Thank you for being here. And I would love for you to just expand a little bit on who you are in the world and what you do here.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here. So who I am in the world, I am just this tiny little being in this huge entire planet, learning every day as we go. I realized that over time, I wanted to consider myself to be an expert at something, but as you continue to learn, you realize you're really not an expert at anything. You're always constantly growing. But to elaborate on what you said, I am a Matrescence Coach. I help women through the first 7+ years of their motherhood journey. And what I've learned from understanding what the Matrescence is an full embodiment of mind, body, and spirit, where you are transitioning, where you're growing, where you're learning. And in our culture, in our new age culture, we really don't have a lot of tribe, a lot of community, the way that it was done way back then, where women were able to be supported through their whole motherhood journey, through the wisdom that was carried down from each matriarch, in a sense, from every generation to generation. So what I do is I help women to understand what their own Matrescence journey has to offer them And a lot of that I did learn from myself, but originally I started off as a mental health therapist. And so I used the wisdom that I learned from my schooling, from being a mental health therapist, and combined that with also my own journey. I'm a Gemini, so I feel like I'm meant to kind of create a balance with the mind and the spirit, and that's always been my saying is like, how do I create a balance? How do I create a balance? And so I feel like my work kind of cultivates and creates that balance in a way. So
There. Love that.
That is
Ellie.
so cool. Yeah, I'm just listening to all the words that you're saying. And one of the things, and I mentioned it beforehand, that I was being a total creepy stalker looking at your Instagram earlier. And if anyone listening, go and check it out because there's some incredible wisdom in there. And there were two things that really jumped out. And the first one was where you talk about that transition from maiden to mother, and what a challenge that can be. And I mean, we're going to just dive straight into the big stuff.
let's
Because
do
certainly
it.
I know that my transition, and I don't think I was really much of a maiden when I transitioned because I didn't have children until I was in my sort of late 30s. But certainly it was huge, and something that even now is a constant work in progress to make sure that I can be the best mother I can possibly be, but also respecting who I am as a person, which is talking about balance, something that I still don't get quite right. But how did that come about for you? Like, how was your transformation, and how do you help people within that space? Because it is massive. Like, nobody tells you how hard motherhood is. It's like this
No.
secret till you have a baby, and then everyone goes, oh yeah, by the way, that's really hard.
That's exactly what happens, right? Like everyone's so happy when you're pregnant. They're like, this is incredible. Oh, yeah. Then you have the baby, you're like, so let me tell you, welcome to this long journey of just chaos. So for me, my work comes from a lot of the things that I experience myself. I don't necessarily say that all of the time, and that's just my own personal shadow work because I do know how the world is. And going off the thing of the expert, people love to turn to people who they think are experts, but often with that lens of an expert comes this expectation that's very unrealistic. But just full transparency, because I am talking about my own journey, most of my work comes from my own experience and what I've navigated myself through. I consider myself to be my best client. So if I am able to help myself through my journey, then I know that there's someone that's very aligned with what I've done or what I've experienced. And they can be like, oh my God, like, did you read my journal? Are you talking to me? Like, how did you know this? I'm like, girl, because I am you. Like, what do you mean? We're in this
Love that.
together. So that's what happened for me. As a mental health professional, I've been in the coaching profession for over 8 years. So going back to what I said, at one point I did believe that I was an expert at what I knew. And I thought I had this. I was like, oh, this is a great pregnancy. Like, I know how to hold space for myself. I'm meditating. I'm doing the breath work. I'm doing the Reiki. Like, I'm doing all of these things. I had a water birth. Like, I felt that I did it by the book of what I knew. And then I had her, and boom, you are just immediately just full blown into motherhood. And you're like, I just got reborn too. What is this? Like, wait a minute, where's my mom? And I had her during COVID, so my mom wasn't even here. My mom never got to see me pregnant. My mom never touched me, not once, through the 9 months of my whole entire pregnancy. It was just me and my husband. And so I was reborn in a sense in realizing just how vulnerable this experience really was. And it was so challenging because I feel, for me personally, being a woman of color, but just a woman in general, we're raised to really learn how to be independent and kind of being a woman in a man's world, learning how to kind of be a woman man in a man's world. So there's a lot of hardness that comes with what we have to learn how to do in order to survive. And I feel like I was immediately pushed into the survival when my spirit and my soul was asking me to nurture not only myself but my daughter. So it was so much internal conflict that we go through that we immediately put up this kind of like a guard to be like, in order for us to survive, I've got to protect myself. So I was like, if I'm feeling this, I know there's other women who are out here feeling this. And it's just a lot of internal programming. You're going to get so much what you were taught, what you weren't taught, what you think you should be doing, and it's just a lot. And if you don't have that community, which a lot of us don't, it's really hard to figure out who you need to turn to. So I was like, well, I love to talk. I love to share my journey. I have a gift of being able to write. Let me go ahead and start to write how I'm navigating through this. And that's kind of how this whole thing was birthed. And then I kind of just started to go down that, and ancestral guidance just kept flowing. It was like, here we go. We're about to go straight into generational healing. You're about to learn how to be a more loving person. You're literally about to learn how to be a more vulnerable person. And you're going to learn how to love in a way that allows you to connect, not have to protect, because you're no longer having to just survive anymore. You are able to thrive in this world. And then that's basically that's what's brought me to this moment where I'm at. And when I mean, and I'm pretty sure you all can agree, it is such a scary journey, because you really are doing something that you can't really turn to your mom and be like, hey, how do you be a more vulnerable person? My mom was like, what are you talking about, girl? Like, that's not what we do here. Like, I'm going head to head with everyone who comes my way.
I
So,
totally hear you. We've just had my parents staying over from the UK, and mum's always been like, I don't do deep, darling. It's so any sort of these conversations, we just don't do them. But I'll be like, Mum, do you remember like how old was I when I walked or something like that? She's like, oh, darling, I can't remember anything of that. There's literally nothing. I'm like, okay, great. This is really helpful.
I appreciate you making
Thank
me
you
feel
so
special.
much. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I had 3 of you. It was all much of a muchness. Brilliant.
Oh, see?
But I mean, I love that you had that awareness that absolutely we are so conditioned to protect ourselves and to be seen as surviving, to be seen as doing okay. How are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. We get so used to that being the response, and that being what we're meant to say, that actually saying, what, this is really, really hard,
Yeah.
is a sign of almost weakness. But being able to find somebody you can have those conversations with, man, I look back at, certainly with my first, I wish I'd had those people to talk to. I could do a lot of the work myself, internally, because I was on that journey.
Yeah.
But in terms of actually speaking it out loud, it wasn't something that I felt comfortable doing at all. So I love that you hold space for that.
Thank you.
I'm going to hand to Erin to ask you about ancestral stuff, because she is also into the ancestors.
I
So I
love
want to
that.
just like witness all of this for a moment.
I love it.
Well, actually, what came up for me while you were talking about that, I guess, is the connectedness that we have to ancestors is often born of experience in this human life, right? And so I'd love to know, for you personally, like I feel that energetic wrench when you talk about your mum not being able to be with you and hold space for you. And so it's clear that there is a deep sense of connectedness between the two of you.
Yeah.
What is your experience of connectedness beyond your mother in terms of that matriarchal lineage that you have going on?
Yeah.
Because it's clear that that's something that's coming forward for you more now that you're, the mother of a daughter and raising a fierce girl child in the world. But what has that journey been like for you? Like, was that something that you've always had connectedness with,
No.
or?
No, so I love that you asked that question. I actually come from a family of women. So when you say that, it's my mom, it's me, my mom, my mom's mom, my mom's mom, my mom's mom, like, so it's just, we're women. Most of the people, if there's any men in our family, they are actually married into our family. I have one family member who has 2 sons. Other than that, it's a family full of women. And so, even going deeper, just as a Black woman, there is a lot of ancestral healing. Of course, there's also a lot of beautiful things that come from our ancestors as well. But for me, it is helping my lineage get back to that nurture and that sacred softness that was not provided because we were oppressed and that we were survivors and we had experienced a lot of turmoil. The women in my family, they're strong. I when it comes to strength, that's not a problem. I'm never concerned. Like, I'm never concerned about the strength that my family carries, the women in my family carry, especially my mother. She's lost both of her parents and her daughters across the country and her first grandchild across the country, yet she's still able to just, wake up every day, smile, have conversations with us, and, live her life. Like, that's strong to me. Especially, you know what I'm saying? Because the only living, part of her is way across the country, and, she's strong. But within that, I feel that I am here to be that generational healer for my family. There's no coincidence that I have the wisdom that I carry, because I do feel that I am here to be able to show my daughter what it's like to be raised by a woman who can nurture you emotionally because she's been able to do it for herself. For the women that were in my family, literally joking is the way that we connect with one another. Beautiful, incredible women. But when it comes to having, like, how are you feeling? Like you said, like, no one's going to ask that question. How you been doing? Like, oh, girl, nothing, just, he's getting on my nerves today. Oh, yeah, me too. Like, it's very surface level because I do think the heaviness that lies within connecting to your emotions and actually having to sit with, there's a lot of trauma that has been passed down. My great great grandmother was not only drowned by one of her husbands, but she was also shot by one of her husbands, on top of being the first generation straight out of slavery. So for me, there is a lot of generational healing that comes with what I do, not only for other women, but for my lineage. And I've seen it. I've seen as I've navigated this, it's allowed other women in my family to be open in doing the same thing. My mother's not the same mother who raised me. And there's at times where my child, like my inner child's like, where was this? Like, this was there? Like, why didn't I get this? But then I look and I'm like, my daughter gets this. That's the reason I'm doing this work. It's because we're all one. It's not about just me. It's about the fact that we're able to come together and say, I love you. I see you. I hear you. I know that this is not going to, it's not okay right now, but it will be okay. How can I support you? Those are things my mom says to me now that I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, had I had that, growing up, of course I probably wouldn't be doing this work, but then guess what? We wouldn't be sitting here either. So I know that there is a silver lining within everything. And I know a lot of people don't want to look at it that way, but I am very grateful to be the generational healer of my lineage. And I'm very grateful to have been raised and been loved by strong women. But I know that there's also this beautiful part and aspect that they did not get to experience because of the things that they had experienced in life. And I am a stay-at-home mom as a Black woman. Like, I feel like that is literally one of my ancestors' dreams, is that I get to actually be home and nurture my family and create this beautiful spiritual, mental, and emotional connectedness. It's a blessing. I'm not no longer having to survive. I get to thrive in life because of the connection that my husband and I have and the life that I've lived. So that is what I do. I don't see my life as just my own. I see it as many other women's experience. And I don't even know how to explain that, but it always feels that way to me. It's like anytime I go through things, I'm like, oh, she needs to hear this. I don't even know who she is, but I'm sitting there writing and I put it out and then boom, there's a woman who talks and I'm like, that's who the she is. So yeah.
Yeah. I love that you are so aware of how important the work that we do as this generation. It feels very much like we're this middle generation, like breaking the chain that has gone on for so long, so that actually our children don't have to carry the crap that we've had to carry. That sort of that heaviness that you talk about is so true. Like, I look at my mum and she's wonderful and she's fantastic and she's just the most joyful, gorgeous person that you can spend time with. And I just wonder what a difference it would have been if she'd been born in this generation. I'm basically her now. Like, the difference in the emotional awareness and being able to support my children in a different way is I know that all the work that I'm doing for my girls is also helping her and her heal her relationship with her mother
Yeah.
and going back. And I think that's something that we've seen time and time again with clients. And I'm sure you have the same, is when you work with women and there's always the mother relationship. There's always something there. And when they do the work on themselves, that relationship changes.
Oh, yeah.
And so often it's just like, I don't know why it's changed, but they're treating me differently, or they're responding to me differently. They're
Yes.
doing things, and it's like, but I'm only working on me. I haven't changed them. And it's like, but that is the power of what we do. That is the power
Yes.
when you are able to dive deep and be willing to look at the hard stuff, to sit in the discomfort, to be willing and open. You get to heal the women that have gone before you, and that feels like such a privilege to be able to offer to these amazing women who have, through their journey and through their lives, we are able to sit here and have this conversation. So
Yes.
yeah, I love that you talk about that. And it must have been so challenging having a baby in COVID times, and I look around at women who have done that just in absolute awe. I couldn't, my mum wasn't with me for the birth of my daughter because she lives in England and I live in New Zealand. So I understand the doing it on your own, but to then, she came out very quickly afterwards and was able to, but it's a strength, because it's that time when you just want your mum.
Oh, yes, for sure.
it's
Yes.
yeah,
It is
it's
challenging.
so full respect in terms of building that mother. Like, the other bit that I was reading that I really resonated with you about was how we bring our own stuff to relationships,
Mhm.
and it's kind of learning to own what is ours
Yeah.
and what isn't. How has that impacted your journey? How are you able to identify what is yours and what isn't?
Ooh. So first, I have to just give thanks to my husband because he is absolutely an incredible force. My husband is younger than me, so we consider ourselves raising one another. He was 19 when we met. I was 24, so literally, we did, in a sense, raise one another. But he keeps me so accountable, that I don't believe that there are things that I'm aware of now and I would not be aware of if it wasn't for him keeping me accountable. In my eyes, because of um, the emotional trauma that I experienced, I seen it as, oh, he's being mean, he's being tough. But I was like, okay, you can only sing this song for so long. Like, you know that you love this person and you care about them. You can only sing this song of that being mean for so long. Is it really that he's being mean, or is there a lens that you need to kind of shift for yourself? So I know that I feel like, because it is my purpose to do this work, the questions that my soul guides me to ask myself is what allows me to be able to help other people to ask questions that they may not be able to ask themselves. So I literally will have a question that just pops up, and it's like, all right, well, if you're feeling this way, is it really, are they really the problem, or is it the way that you're experiencing it? And then I thought about it for a while. I was like, okay, I know how the mind works. I know how emotions work. And I know how trauma works. Where have I stopped emotionally? It came up. I was like, where, at what point? And I thought about it, and I was like, it was my teen self. Like, as a teenage woman, I feel like for teenagers, if you just think about the teen experience, you're not an adult and you're not a child, but you go this life where people are constantly wanting you to grow up, but not giving you the opportunities to be able to be yourself and do what you need to do to trust yourself. So I'm a recovering people pleaser. I'll say that. I was really good in school. Like, I got the great grades. I played sports. I went to college. I really just wanted to make my mom and my parents happy. I loved the external validation, but that came from the lack of internal validation and understanding of myself. So that's been my story for so long. I was like, I know how to think my way through things, but to feel it, I feel like a kid. And I was like, oh, this is it. This is it. This is it. I was like, I I had to learn how to think my way through emotions, which is essentially emotional abandonment, because emotions aren't logic. And anytime you're trying to attach logic to an emotion, you are not allowing yourself to fully feel what it is that you're supposed to be experiencing and feeling. And so that's really where it completely started to change for me, because not only am I a Gemini, I am literally ruled by Mercury communication. So being in my head is just natural for me. But it really took me into realizing a lot of my emotions were still immature, because I never got and received the validation for what I was experiencing. So I knew I had to do that for myself. And I do genuinely feel a lot of women have to do that work, because we are too emotional. And if we're doing this generational work, then that means that the women before us never had the capacity to not only understand their own emotions, but most definitely not ours. So they taught us to do the same thing, go into logic. Oh, why are you crying about? That's not a big deal. So if you're hearing that for 15, 16, 17 years of your life, you're going to say, this isn't a big deal. Why? But the emotions don't know that. The emotions are still going to try to come, because that's natural for us. As souls having a human experience, we're meant to have these emotions. But when we don't have a guide who's saying, hey, I see that this is hard for you right now, just feel it and we can talk about it later. I tell my husband when my daughter is having a tantrum, this isn't time for logic, because he's a man. So he's like, how do I fix this? And I'm like, this isn't time for logic. Just be there with her. And he's learning how to do that. And he's like, this works. And I'm like, yeah, because it's emotions. Like, just let her be there in her emotion. So when I started to really understand this for myself, you get the opportunity to just listen and be like, wow, I've never had anybody listen the way that I'm listening to myself. And of course, there's still a part of you that wants somebody else to listen, which is why I hold the space for, mothers too, because I'm like, we still need community. It's not about necessarily external validation. It's we want connection and community and connection and community. So, that's really what it is. It's not, I'm looking for someone to validate me. I just need someone to be there with me because I'm a human, and that's what we want. And that's what we need. So I know that I have the capacity to do that for myself, because I am meant to do this work. So as I've guided myself through this, I've been able to simultaneously do that for, the women that I work with, but also for my husband too at the same time. So we're kind of both on this journey of learning to hold space for our emotions, which has changed our marriage astronomically in such a beautiful way. But it's such an important part that it's like these emotions are just energy and motion. When you allow them to just actually have their opportunity, they're actually just keys to let you know just what you were feeling and how it's connecting the past to the present. And that's okay. Like, we're human. Just
Yeah.
listen, let it ride, like ride it out. And then once it's at its peak, then you can go back into logic. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you talk about your husband in that space, because I'm the same. My husband is he's such a deep, wonderful human, and there are so many emotions there, but he has been told his whole life not to show them, to not talk about them, to not understand them, to push them down, to not allow them to come up. And I try and explain to him, it's like they're just data points. It's just information. Like, just if you let it come through, it'll just help you understand a little bit more. You don't have to be scared of emotions. And yet so much of what we were taught, certainly, I grew up in the 80s, emotions were not deemed as something we talk about. Even in the 90s, there was starting to be a few sort of words around it, but it was still very much, women are emotional. It was seen as a negative, all of those sorts of
Yeah.
things. And now it's kind of this about turn that everyone suddenly, it feels like there's this whole raising of consciousness of people being aware of how important it is to be able to feel, even just feel them in the first instance. I have clients that I work with who are literally coming to me saying, I don't feel emotions. How do I do that? And, it's incredible that we're there, but also that we are there, that people know how important it is, that it is becoming part of life, and we are raising children. My daughter will say to me, Mummy, I feel this, and she'll be able to tell me the
Love
emotion
that.
that it is, and I'm just like, she has more emotional awareness than my husband does, 100%. Bless him.
I love
To be
that.
fair, I think the dog does actually
No,
sometimes.
seriously, there really are. We can learn so much from them. I learned so much through my daughter and how she's able to just ride the waves of emotion. Like she'll cry and then she's like, "Ah, hey," and I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to. Hey, girl, I need to do the same
Yeah.
thing. Like, let me ride this wave of emotion. But it's a beautiful thing when they're able to be fostered in that. I talk about it often. I see that when a child is able to use their mind and their being to just grow into the things that they love, they're all geniuses. They're all baby
Mm.
geniuses. Like they're all incredible. They're all talented. They're all intelligent. And I just see that because I'm like, we hold space for her to be her emotional self. So there's not a lot of internal work that she's having to do to say like, I need to be afraid of this, because it rewires the way that we're able to learn and engage and receive information. Like I'm like, she is very smart, but I'm like, at the same time, it's not that she's necessarily very smart, it's that she literally can wake up and just be engaged with the world around her without feeling that her emotions are going to be impacted or stifled or possibly shunned, or it might have some form of a negative, receive a negative relationship between her parent and her. So I see that even now as she's going into two. I'm like, it's so important that we allow them that emotional freedom, because emotional freedom allows them to really learn and become just these incredible, resilient, but also retaining so much information. Like it's crazy. I'm like, you retain more than me. Like I forgot this.
And it gets really annoying when they really retain stuff where you've said,
Yeah.
if you do X, you can have Y,
Can
and
you
then
said this?
with no intention of following through.
5 days ago, to be exact, Mom, you said.
We have one of those, although he will remember things from years
Oh, I
ago.
believe it.
He's 8, and he'll be like, "Remember the time when we did this?" And we'll be like, "No." And then his brother will pipe up, and he's like, "That was years ago." And it would be like when he was like 4 or
Oh,
5, and he
wow.
remembers the detail of it, and he'll use it against us, bless him, and pull it out and just be like, "When we did that, you did this, and now you're doing the opposite. So what's
That's
changed?" And I'm like,
incredible.
"Dude, hold
But that's
accountability."
incredible because it
Like,
just
it's
shows you,
crazy.
like, to me, I feel like that shows you that we are raising humans to be in their full capacity. Like, we're going to see a generation of humans that are incredibly just mind blowing. Like, we're going to be like, all right, this is like a lot. They're all remembering things. And we're going to have to be held really accountable, but that's a good thing because I feel like it's going to really allow them to create deeper connections, deeper understandings with one another in a way that we can't even fathom because we've had to learn how to still kind of survive. Like, I feel like people don't understand how important it is to be a human that's outside of survival. All species are surviving, and look where that's got them. They still are doing the same things. Like, we need to be able to thrive so we can continue to see growth and connection and being able to get to, in my opinion, this oneness that we all know kind of exists with, where like, why do we always know that there's a oneness, but we've never really experienced the oneness, but the oneness still exists? Like, because that's the goal. Like,
You you have literally, something has literally just dropped in at this moment around that, by allowing our children to be emotionally like awake, to be allow them to just feel all of the things. They don't have to spend their time trying to work out how to disconnect or how to like disassociate, or all of the things that I know that I certainly
right.
did, and I'm sure people listening had to do in order to survive. We learned all of these mechanisms to get through our childhood, to get through our teens, and actually by allowing them to be their whole wonderful selves, they have got time to remember the things that happened 4 or 5 years ago. They've got that space because they're not having to use their minds for anything else.
Exactly.
And that's just like literally blown my mind. So thank you for, holding that space to allow that to pop in.
Yeah, I
So
love it. No, I love that. It is when you really think about it in that capacity, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is why it has been hard for us to be able to do the things, why we continue to repeat these cycles, because we're continuing to have to do the same thing, but the same coping mechanisms and learning how, like it's a cycle, it's a pattern. And one of the things that I tell the women that I work with, and I even tell myself, like when I notice certain triggers, I'm like, this is a pattern. So if it's a pattern, it is something that I can completely detach from and learn something different. Like, because this pattern can only get me so far. This pattern is literally going to take me in the same place that it knows. So I repeat things like this to myself to help me to realize, and I'm not always ready to let go of a pattern when I'm aware of it. Like, let's just be real. There's comfort within the patterns that we do have, and that's okay. That's a part of our human experience. But whenever you are aware and you start to get to that point where you're like, okay, I'm kind of tired of repeating this. So it is this pattern that I can let go of. Now let me welcome in the new. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I feel like our children are going to be able to understand is like newness creates opportunity and possibility and it excites them. Whereas for us, newness creates opportunity and possibility, but it scares us a little bit because it's so unknown. I feel like because we're allowing them to constantly be in the unknown and create, they're going to crave that. They're going to want that. I see that with my daughter. I'm like, she likes to go down slides at like 1.5, like big ones. What are you doing? Like, you're not like, this is crazy to me that you're doing this. And she's just like, no, can I climb way up there? Like, what's up? And I'm like, and to me, I'm like, this is crazy, but I'm like, I will not put my fears upon her. Like, she needs to learn how to trust herself. And I see when you allow them to trust themselves, whoo, that's where you've got someone that is loaded and prepared and ready for what life has to offer them. And I think that's beautiful. I'm pretty sure we can all see that with our babies.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I went to a parenting workshop once because, I'm a parent and that's what we do is we try and be better than we are. And the person running the workshop said to us, like, we spend so much time stopping our children from things that we think are dangerous that we never actually allow them the opportunity to assess the danger for themselves. Yeah. And then we can apply that across every interaction that they have with the world, whether that's a mental or physical danger, or whether it's an emotional thing. And we stop them in their tracks. And he's like, he had never met a child in his, this was his statement. I've never met a child who doesn't know when they're going too far for their own limitations. He's like, I've never come across a child who has climbed one rung higher than they think they're capable of. I've never met a child who has climbed a tree higher or, gone further out into the ocean or whatever intentionally than they believe they are safe doing. And it is us as parents that is removing that regulation for themselves. So it's really interesting to go through that process of actually really checking in with yourself, I think, around like how much am I allowing my child to regulate themselves here and how much am I pulling back and saying, actually, no, I have fear around that, so you should too.
It's a big one. I realize I have a lot of my mom's fears. One being height. I'm like, I didn't even get to experience it because she was just like, absolutely not. Like, you're going to fall out of that ride. What? I'm going to fall out of this ride? Oh, I'm never getting on there. And then I realized, well, that's not the norm for people falling out of rides. Yeah. And my husband's a thrill seeker. So luckily I have him in my corner because he's helped me to go back and be like, this is safe to do these things. It's okay to do these things. It's okay to question these things. To me, he is one incredible human. I always talk about the signs, but he's my sister's sign. He's a Sagittarius. So needless to say, we we have our moments because we're saying the same thing in different ways, but he says his with so
Yeah.
much fire. Um, and I love that because he shows me that it is okay to question things. He is very much so a questioner. He's like,
Mm.
but I don't, he's like, if I don't understand it, I'm a question it. And I'm like, that is incredible. Like, that is so incredible that you hold space for that because you should. Um, and I'm glad that my daughter, I could see that in her because I do. I want her to be able to experience those things and know that she is more trustworthy than me. Like, I tell my husband, I'm like, if she doesn't listen to us about something, it's not that she's being disobedient, it's that she's like, I believe that the what I feel right now trumps what you're telling me. Like, it's just that simple.
Yeah.
And so I look and I'm like, yeah, she's right. She didn't fall. It's cool. I'm just gonna eat that one. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Lila.
Yeah, my husband's like that, and he's very much the one who takes them to the park. A, because I find it a little bit boring, I'm not going to lie, and he seems to really enjoy it. So, but when they come back and they're like, "Yeah, we've been on the Flying Fox," and this was when Phoebe was not even 3, and I was like, "What? You go on with Daddy?" And she's like, "No, I go on my own." I'm like, what is going on? Why are you letting her go on this like adult ride on her own? Like, he's like, oh, she holds on. And, I'm just like, oh God, don't do that when I'm
Yep.
around you. And I have to really I have to check myself and not say, be careful, hold on tight and all of
Yep.
that. I just have to trust that they're not going to let go, hopefully. Oh, well, to be fair, Phoebe may well do, but she'd probably bounce off anyway because she is the child that is going to do all of the
Love
things.
it. I love that. It's so true. I love it. I love it so much.
uh, I'm so it's so refreshing speaking to somebody who is so willing to allow the world to happen to their child with such love as well. It really, what are the next thing, where is your focus going? Like, what's 2023 going to be about for you? It's the start of a new year. I'm always interested to see what are we seeing for this year.
Yes, so 2023 is looking a little different than last year. Last year, I did a lot of one on one work. This year, I am looking to create a community space. I still consider this to be the winter, so I'm still like just riding it out, But in the spring, we're going to be birthing that community space, where I'm going to be intimately bringing women in to do some sacred healing work together, because I do feel that even though we want to do this work and we're so used to doing it alone, we need to learn how to be able to trust other women along our journey. And that is the space that I want to
Yeah.
hold for women, is that you're going to learn to trust these women that are in the sacred space with you. We are really going to break that barrier of why we don't trust other people with our vulnerability that are outside of our home. We're really going to bring that together, because to me, what I see is if I'm able to create spaces like this on multiple occasions, then you're going to have women that are starting to connect all over the world. And this also creates a whole just like web of our children being connected with other children who are being raised by women who are holding that love, that they're also receiving in their
Mm.
homes. So 2023 is going to be more about creating that community. It's going to start small, but I know for a fact that it will continue to grow and flourish. So I'm really excited about it. I'm just letting it slowly manifest and come, because usually I'm kind of like, oh, this is an idea, boom, 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 boom. And then I get there and I'm like, oh, because I'm a manifesting generator. So like I just go, go, go. But this one, I'm like, I want to nurture it. I want it to really be like very intentional for the women who are like, you know what? I do want to be a part of this, because I want to be held by other women, but I want to also hold other women while I'm growing and healing and raising my child. Like, I want to be in this space where women are there to be like, you're going through this, I'm here. What do we need to do? Do we need to have a moment of meditation? Like, what do you need? Like, what do we need to do right now? So I'm really excited for that. As far as me, um, I just, I look forward to being more connected this year. I feel that I've allowed myself to flourish and be more vulnerable within my own intimate spaces. And I'm seeing how that's allowing me to pause and not necessarily be so quick to anger or quick to go straight into ego and tell somebody like it is, because let's be real, that's something I can easily do. I'm like, oh, let me just rip this person a new one and then go back and apologize later. So I'm learning that that can be put on the back burner. That's not necessarily needed, especially in my family. So I feel like I really want to work on nourishing my marriage so my daughter can see, like, oh wow, like my parents are really learning how to not be perfect, but be willing to repair, be willing to laugh when we realize the other person is mad about something silly. Because she's one of those people, if you laugh, she's going to laugh, and then we're just all laughing. So I want to be able to create more moments like that with my family as well.
Oh, beautiful.
Beautiful.
So much of what you said resonated. I think we're probably coming towards the end now. Erin, it's been a while, but can you remember all the questions, the questions we always ask at the end? Were you desperately, I could see your thinking face on, so.
Oh, no, I was thinking about lots of takeaways from this conversation, actually, and how I feel like the conversation and the work that you are birthing in the world, and what you share of yourself and of your ancient wisdom and all of that stuff. Like, I feel like that is that will inform my work moving forward, and immeasurably. And so I'm grateful for the space here and the knowledge and wisdom and energy and love that you've shared with us. I think it's been really an interesting conversation. I know Ellie will feel the same around all of that stuff. And I wasn't thinking about the questions at all. And so now I'm madly trying to find them. No, we ask random questions of our guests every time. Just human questions, not specific to what you do or anything like that. So the first question that we ask is, what book do you wish you had written?
Ooh, what book do I wish that I had written? So there's only a few books that I've read from front to back. Um, and The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Mr. Dr. Murphy is literally, I feel like it was the one that changed my life. And if I had written that, I feel like that would be, is that what you mean? Like a book that I've read? Yeah, no, that one. I recommend it to everyone, because it changed my life. It helped me to realize that I am not my trauma. I am not the programming that you think that you are at some point. Like, you're like, why am I like this? And it's like, it's not you. It's not you. It's just these patterns, these programs, So reading that, I mean, I was like, this is how it is. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, this, say less. So I'm literally telling people online, and every time I'm like, just start with that book, start with that book. So that's definitely the book that I wish I would have written.
Cool. Awesome. The next question is, who, like, if you could invite 3 people to dinner, living or dead, who would you invite?
Who would I invite? Well, I would definitely invite my grandmother. She has passed away, but anytime I have any type of sacred work, they're always like, "Oh, there's this really strong woman present." I'm like, "That's my nanny." Like all the time, they're like, "Seems like your grandmother," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's her." She's the one who ushered in this sacred journey of becoming a mother. She was the one who was a part of the Reiki healing that cleared and cleansed my womb so that I could produce a child. She was there. So I can imagine she was like, oh yeah, this is happening. Like, we're doing this, everyone. Like, I just imagine her. So she's definitely going to be there. Another person that I really would love to have there with me would definitely be Michelle Obama. I think she is an incredible woman. I do love her fierceness. I do love the fact that she's still out there doing work. She's just awesome. Like, I don't know, everyone knows. Like, she's awesome.
She's a
we
rock
would have
star.
loved for her to have just went ahead and you're next. Like, we would have been great with that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
But it's cool. It's cool. It's cool. And the third person that I would love, you said living or dead. I'm gonna have to go with someone that's not here. I would definitely go with Malcolm X. The reason I would go with Malcolm X is because I feel that his story was told a little differently than what it really was, because he was so outspoken. He definitely was not, he went against the grain. He was totally different from Malcolm X in the sense that he was like, we're going to be more proactive about making these things happen. And I just feel like his story wasn't really told in the way that, there's a documentary that was told by the people that knew him, and I feel like it just really wasn't told the way that it should. He was they had a little darkness around him, like he was a bad person, but in reality, he was really about to make some moves and changes. And so, if there's anybody I would definitely have those three people. Malcolm X and my grandmother would definitely they would have a ball. So they probably are having a ball. Let's just be real. They probably are already just conspiring together, especially after I said that. There's no telling what's going to happen at this point.
Awesome. The third question is, I forgot, what was it? Oh, that's right. If you were sitting in front of your 90-year-old self, what would you want her to say to you?
That is an incredible emotional question for sure. I definitely would want her to say that she's proud of me. That what we've done definitely made the change that we thought it would. And that, we are loved. We are loved, and we put out love into the world. So that's definitely what I would want her to say.
Oh,
yeah,
I love
awesome. That. Well, I guess the beauty of knowing that that's what you want her to say is that everything is a step closer to that, right? So,
oh my goodness, my granny's 93, so like just thinking of having a life lived that long is just like, wow, that would be incredible. It would be incredible.
Yeah. Oh, the things you will see. The last question, and this is Ellie's personal favorite, I think, is what is your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure is I love to eat. Like, just give me all the sweets, like donuts, give me chocolate, give them to me. Like, like ice cream.
Sugar.
Give me the sugar. Like, I notice when I'm eating it, I'm like, yep, this is an emotional eating habit for sure. Like, it is. It's my guilty pleasure.
I'm still enjoying it.
Yeah. I mean, if you haven't eaten your feelings, you're not really a woman, I don't think. Like at some point it's happened.
I'm keep doing it. My husband's like, you're going to stop this one? I'm like, no, probably not. Ever. No.
Yeah. Just get out of my way. You're in front of the pantry. Like,
are you eating a popcorn? Are you questioning me? Like, it's like a whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I can feel that.
Give me the sugar.
I love that.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with us, and your energy and your wisdom and your love and your heart. It's been really, as I said, like I will certainly change the way I view what I do moving forward as a result, and I know Ellie will too, and hopefully the listeners will as well. We will share all of the links with our listeners around how to get in touch with you, how to creepy stalk you like Ellie did, whatever.
And we'll continue to.
Yeah. And I'm excited to see this community that you're going to birth in the year to come. I think you're right. Community and collaboration and connectedness is absolutely the way that we heal ourselves and the way that we heal the world. And I think that's beautiful work. So thank you for doing it. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. Well,
it's been a pleasure.
Really
thank you.
Thank you for holding this space. I appreciate it.
It's been so much fun.
Yeah, we've loved it. Thank you.
Yay.